So we're going to continue into the next stage of this sort list macro that we've started to create here inside of the Visual Basic editor. Now we've already created a variable. Remember that storage location. We're receiving input from the user, bringing something into our macro, storing it. Now we're going to build some logic that checks that value that then determines how it should sort our list, whether it's by division, category, or total sales. So I'm going to utilize an if statement here. If you've ever used the Excel if function, this is going to be very similar. If you haven't used the if function, totally fine, but you're going to see something that's very similar to an if function inside of the Excel interface, just its regular Excel interface, not the Visual Basic interface. We're going to build this logic that checks the user input and then does whatever it should. If they choose a number 1, then we'll sort it by division. If they choose a number 2, then we'll sort it by category, and so on. So take a look. This is how you build logic using an if statement within Visual Basic. So I'm back inside the Visual Basic editor. I'm inside of my sub procedure called sort list. And right below my variable declaration and my variable gathering the input, I'm going to start to build my if logic. And it looks something like this. We'll say if, and I'm going to say if user input, my variable that we're gathering information from the user, is equal to 1, then we're going to do something. Now at the end of an if statement, we close the if. We'll say end if. So you got the beginning, check this out. If this is true, do this, and then end. So I'm going to say, okay, if user input equals 1, then we're going to make a call to one of our earlier macros, our earlier procedures, that tells it how to sort. In my case, I want to run the division sorts, which is that first procedure up here. All right, so if user input equals 1, then run the division sort. Well, that's only 1. What if they choose 2 or 3? Then what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to bring in an else if. And I'm going to say, okay, well, if it's not 1, then let's check to see if user input is equal to 2. If it's equal to 2, then we should be, let's see here, looks like I misspelled something there. Else if user input. Oh, I forgot my then. So if it's user input's equal to 2, then we should be running the category sort. So there's 1 and 2, but now I got a third one. So I'm going to say, well, okay, you're not a 1 or a 2, then let's check to see if user input is equal to a 3. Then we're going to do something else. And in this case, we'll say run the total sales, or the total sort. And I believe is what I called it earlier. So now we've got this logic here, taking the user input, the contents of that variable, checking its value, the user input, if it's a 1, 2, or 3, and then based on that input, we're running the appropriate sort. So take a look. Let's see what we got so far. So I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way, just so we can see into the background, making sure that my cursor is inside of the sort list procedure. And up at the top of my screen, I'll hit the play button. So once again, like we saw in the earlier lection, we've got the prompting window, my prompts inside of there for 1, 2, or 3. And let's say I type in a number 2, which is for the category. So I'll type in a 2, I'll hit OK. And I've now sorted my list by category. You can see ascending sort, advertising, clerical support, consultants, and so on. Let's try that once again. I'll click into my sort list, I'll hit the play button again, and this time I'm going to choose a number 3, which would be totals. So I'll number 3, I'll hit OK, and I've now sorted my list ascending by total. We've got the variable, we got the user input, now we have the logic that's making calls to the appropriate sort methods or sort procedures that are inside of this file. Super simple. Little bit of Visual Basic to create a very robust, a very dynamic interface for our users to now be able to sort this list.